Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to go over what we read already in the Dred Scott decision, and we're going to actually finish this reading. So, as we read, we know that this story is about, or this section is about Dred Scott, who was a slave back into 1800s, born in 1800, died in 1858. Um, we know that he was born a slave during a time where when the United States was going through a turmoil or a problem where the North and the South or the country was split into whether we should have slavery or we should not have slavery. So it was all about slavery. So that happened when he was alive. And so we start learning about his story. At first, he was owned by the Blow family. Then he was sold to the Emerson family. Mr. Emerson was a military man, so he moved um, uh, Dred Scott from one place to another. Most of the time, he went to Illinois, he went to Wisconsin. Both of those states were free. And then later on, when he passed away, or when Mr. Emerson died, the Scots were left to his wife. Now, after that, he decided. After Mr. Emerson passed away, a while later, he decided he was going to fight for his freedom. And the reason why he wanted to fight for his freedom, or his claim, was because he had already lived in some free states. So, with no further ado, today we're going to go ahead and read on the next story, the end of the section. So, first thing we want to do is again look for, some clues. So, for example, we usually look at picture. This is an old courthouse in St. Louis where Dred Scott fought for his freedom. So that's how it looked. Says here, times now are not as they were when the previous decision in this subject were made. Yeah, things have changed. We have also a picture over here of the Dred Scott decision, how it provoked battles. Oh, wow, there were fights. This 19th century hand color woodcut shows a fight at Fort Scott, Kansas. Seems like this was very interesting case indeed. I see people here with guns. Well, actually, on both sides have guns and sticks and all kinds of different things. Let's see the next page. President Lincoln at the foreground in the Battle of Fredericksburg, a main battle of the Civil War. Okay, I know that President Lincoln was one of the ones responsible for the freedom of slaves. All right, so let's go ahead and read. Let's see what happened. The first trial began in June 1847 in Missouri State Court. Scott lost. In a new trial, the court found for Scott and his family, or I guess the court fought for Scott and his family, declaring them free because they had lived in a free state and a free territory. Hey, that's good news. That's good news. They were free. So at first, I guess, let's see, in the trial, the court found Scott and his family. So first he lost, and then he was declared free. Then they declared them free. Well, that's good news. Eliza Emerson was not happy with this decision. I bet not. That's his Mr. Emerson's wife, Eliza Emerson. Some say she didn't want to lose the earnings she made by hiring the Scots out to the others. She appealed the decision. That means when you ask for the judge to review the case and to fight it, that you want to fight it again. She was asking that the case be heard again in a higher court, in the Supreme Court of Missouri. In 1852, this court overturned the earlier ruling saying that Scott and his family were still slaves. Oh man, so again, so as you can see, at first they were free. They lost the case, then they won the case, and then they lost again when they went to the Supreme Court. Scott didn't give up. He continued his fight in the United States Circuit Court. However, in 1854, that court also ruled that Scott and his family were still slaves. Again, still slaves. Earlier, slave states like Missouri had sometimes freed slaves who had lived in a free state for a long time. This is why Scott thought he had a chance, but opinions against freeing slaves had hardened in the meantime. Uh-oh. I see his case then. So Dred Scott, it says here he had decided to fight for his freedom because he had lived in states. And as you can see, slaves earlier slave states like Missouri had sometimes freed slaves. I'm going to put this exclamation mark here. They had freed the slave before, but now, as you can see, it wasn't the case anymore because the laws have been now, they were not harder. It was harder for them to become slaves. I mean, to be free. Like things change. Huh. Laws had changed in just a short while. So, still, Scott fought on. In December 1854, he took his case to the highest court in the land, the United States Supreme Court. The highest one. Wow. The trial began in February 1856. 10 long years had passed since Scott had started his legal fight for freedom. By this time, people all over the nation were following the case. With tensions high, both Southerners and Northerners had a big stake in the results. So now we know that with him with Dred Scott taking his case to the Supreme Court, now he was heard not only in the states of Missouri, but all over the country. And everyone, as we were talking, everyone was upset about slavery. Some, the North, believed in freeing the slaves, and the South believed in keeping the slaves. So they were now going to use this as a case. And people are fighting because they felt strongly either against or for slavery. And this is all because of Mr. Scott, or he was racing. People were using him or his case as a reason why they should fight. On March 6, 1857, the 9 justices of the Supreme Court filed into the courtroom and took their seats. So they went inside. Everyone's waiting. So I'm just thinking of all these people are waiting outside, listening. They want to know what's going to happen. What are this judges going to say? Are they going to allow slavery, or are they going to condemn it or go against it? So Chief Justice Roger Taney began to read his majority opinion. It took him more than 2 hours to read the decision. Very long. He wrote that black people have no rights which any white man was bound to respect. Oh boy, this is not good. They had no rights. If you were African American, you had no rights. that should be respected by white people. He said that because of Scott's race, he was not a citizen and you had no right to sue the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution is the set of laws that govern our country. Wow. This was his ruling. This did not only apply. I'm going to put a star right here. That's a big idea here. It didn't only apply to him, but all the African Americans at that time. There was more. Taney also said that the federal government had no right to interfere with the free movement of property throughout the territories. Property in this case referred to the slaves. This decision canceled out the Missouri Compromise of 1820, which for nearly 40 years had limited the territories where slavery could be practiced. In other words, there was uh, there was no chance for any slave to go into a free state and be declared free. If you were a slave, then you'd stay a slave. They had ruled that out now. They ruled out the fact that you can become a free state. So the government, he says now, the governments could not, had no right. They had no right to interfere with the free property, movement of property. They were treated like people. Wow. Like things. I'm sorry. They were African Americans were treated like things. Interesting. So if you owned it in your state, you moved, then you own that slave as well. Next page. Southerners were happy with the Supreme Court's decision as it favored them and their pro slavery position. However, Northerners were outraged. So Southerners were happy. Northerners, however, were not. They were outraged. They were real mad that that they had ruled again. I mean, for slavery. Southerners were happy. Northerners were outraged. Again, this tension between the North and the South is accumulating, it's getting bigger and bigger. Newspapers around the country declare their views for and against the court's ruling. Many Northerners believe that the court's decision was a step towards making slavery legal throughout the United States. Anti-slavery feeling increased dramatically. The country took a step closer to the Civil War. So as you can see, everything got bigger. The problems got bigger throughout the United States. Yep. So this is what the newspapers were saying. See, the North and the South. The North, that's the ones that believed in freeing the slaves. They said the Chief Justice Roger Taney, has delivered one of the most atrocious opinions that has ever disgraced the history of the courts of civilized nation. It was an atrocious law. Sounds like a really bad. Yeah. Judge Taney requests the American people to believe that the framers of the Constitution did not know their own minds. So, again, goes back to the Constitution and being a free person, um, owning your own freedom. So, this decision just made in the Dred Scott case by the Supreme Court of the United States is probably the most important that ever came from the highest tribunal of our country, 1857. So all at the same time. At the same time, the North, they were happy, or they was the happy ones. Let me draw the mad face on here because they were mad. And these were happy. Happy face. They were so happy. Slavery is guaranteed, they were saying. In repudiation of the diabolical doctrines of fanatics by a tribunal of jurists as learned, impartial, and unprejudiced as perhaps the world has ever seen. We regard the decision of the judges of the Supreme Court in this case with the highest satisfaction. Thank you, judges, they were saying. It meets with our hearty, cordial, unqualified approval. They were approving. Wow. And just so because he wasn't going to be so, because Dred Scott was not going to be free. Paragraph 18, let's see. What happened to the Scots after they lost their case? Yeah, I was wondering what's going to happen to him. I know that the country is in turmoil, they're upset at each other, but then what happened to him? The Blow family, the descendants of Dred Scott's original owner, Peter Blow, purchased the Scots and then set them free. A free man at last, Dred Scott took a job as a porter at a hotel in St. Louis. He also delivered laundry that Harriet took in. Sadly, Scott did not have very long to enjoy his freedom. He became ill and died on September 17, 1858, about a year after gaining his freedom. But at least I would say he died with dignity because he was now free and he had fought for this. So, what about the country? Hmm. Yet, Dred Scott case had considerable ramifications or consequences because of his because of that case. The country had many consequences. Abraham Lincoln used the case to help him win the presidential election in 1860. So, thanks to the Dred Scott, Abraham Lincoln was now the president. He used this case to become a president, and that led to the secession of the Union. So that's when the states parted, they split. When President Lincoln became the president, that's when the South says, "You know what? We don't agree with you. We're going to become our own state." And they did. But when Abraham Lincoln became the president, Lincoln issued, oh wait, and that followed the Civil War beginning in 1861. So a lot of things happened because this case was very important. This case helped Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln becoming the president started um, helped started the the secession of the states, or the splitting of the nation. It started the Civil War as well. In 1862, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves in the places that were rebelling from the U.S. Dred Scott fight from the U.S. So after this, during the war, Mr. Lincoln actually declared us for the freedom of the slaves. He freed the slaves through the Emancipation Proclamation. Dred Scott's fight for freedom helped pave the way to the historic moment. So thanks to Mr. Scott, President Lincoln got inspired, became the president, and he freed the slaves. All because of one person. So that just means a lot to you and to me, that when you fight for something, things change. So this is the end or conclusion of our reading for the week. Okay, so let me, I need to find out how to stop it. Hmm.